Ayako. I'm Rabbi Shaky Dome with a special message and decree today. How the congregation of Israel has been compared to a lioness. Among the kings she crouched, among the rulers she raised her sons. She raised up one of her sons, and he became a king. And he learned to kill mercilessly. He slew people. When the nations heard about him, he was seized in their snare, and they brought him in chains to the land of Egypt. When she saw that he had failed, that her hope was lost, she anointed another one of her sons and made him king. He went among the kings, and the king was he. And he learned to kill mercilessly and slew people. He made desolate his castles and laid waste their cities. The land and everything in it were astounded by the noise of his roaring. Then the nations from all the surrounding provinces gathered together against him. They spread their nets over him, and he was caught in their snare. And they put him in a yoke, in chains, and carried him off to the king of Babylon. And they brought him into prison, so that his voice might no longer be heard on the mountains of Israel. The congregation of Israel, when it observes the Torah, is compared to a vine planted by springs of water, whose branches are sturdy and whose boughs are thick. She is planted near abundant waters. In her there were mighty rulers, kings powerful enough to subdue the kingdom, and exalted by its might over the kingdoms, excelling in its military forces and its many valiant men. But she was uprooted by force from the land of the abode of the Shekinah. She was exiled to another land, and the king, who was as violent as the east wind, slew her people, and her mighty rulers were exiled, and the nations that were as fierce as fire destroyed them. And now she is like a vine which is planted in the wilderness, in the desolate and dry land. Nations who are as fierce as fire have come because of her presumptuous sins. They have slain her people. She has no mighty rulers, kings who are heroic enough to subdue the kingdom. The prophet has uttered a lamentation. It is a prophecy, but it shall become a lamentation. I have read from a prophecy to be given on today about the days that are coming ahead. And you see the stories of two kings that were raised up. And these two kings, one goes into Egypt and the other one goes into Babylon. You see, these are the north and the southern kingdoms. One from the house of Jeroboam and one from the house of Rehoboam. And it says also here in the mystery of these two kings that they were mighty and valiant, and they could win war and had very strong military forces, yet they were caught in snares and consumed by the nations. So we became scattered. I'm also going to point out that it says that when the congregation of Israel observes the Torah, also and to observe the Torah, no law is kept without a culture. So you have to have the law and the Abrahamic culture. When you have these two things, you're likened them to a vine or a tree that is planted or established. The tree is planted in its land. It is not planted in a foreign place. So the cactus, its land that it grows in is desert land. It grows there. And yet the fir tree grows in its land that is suitable to it. The children of Israel, in order for them to be planted, they have to be planted back in their land. It says that when you follow these rules, you will build back your administration, your military forces, your government for yourself. You won't be under the rulership of the nations when you begin to obey the rules and the instructions of the culture and tradition. And lastly, it says you're about to go into the wilderness and be slain through presumptuous sins. A presumptuous sin is when you assume or you presume, you have a presumption that you are correct about something and you are wrong. This is what the law states, and this is the word of the Most High to you. I read it directly from the book first, and now I'm giving you the sense to tell you about what is coming in the years ahead. Salam alaikum.